Hi friends, it's Donna here, and I have a pair of Christmas cards today that use my favourite non-Christmas card making supply. Let's get started, shall we? For each of the cards today, I'm going to use a card base and a card front. Paper Rose has these in Australian and US sizes, and the card fronts are just a little smaller than the card bases, so when you use them both together, you get a nice little border all the way around. And here's my favourite non-Christmas supply, and that is the nesting bunting metal die. It makes beautiful, long, thin triangles, which would make great bunting, but I think they make perfect Christmas trees for quick and easy cards. For the first card, we're using one of the bigger triangles, and I've cut that out nice and central on my front panel. I'm going to use a couple of papers from the Oh So Sweet Christmas paper pack as my backgrounds today, but lots of different things would work here. You need to cut the paper to be larger than your triangle, but smaller than your panel. I'm going to use this tall script words Merry Christmas die to make the sentiment, and I'm cutting it out 3 times in total from white cardstock, remembering to keep the little tittle, that dot above the eye, in a place where I can't lose it. I've glued 2 of those together already, but before I glue my top layer down, I'm just going to colour it up using a couple of different red distress inks in Festive Berries and Candied Apple, and a paper pouncer. Once that top layer was coloured, I've glued that to my other 2 layers so that that sentiment is now 3 layers high and quite sturdy. I'm popping up my front panel with some foam tape and just laying my background paper behind before adding that to a card. Next, I'm going to add the sentiment. Usually I would have laid this sentiment lower down on the card, but because I want it to stretch across the triangle, I'm putting it a little bit higher up so that more of the letters are on the white and less is hanging in the middle. That way the sentiment will be a little bit sturdier. And I'm just looking at which letters are going to sit on that white front panel and only putting glue behind those letters. Once again, I need to add that dot above the eye. And that's the first card done. You could do this with all kinds of Christmas papers that you have in your stash, or even create your own with watercolour, or strips of washi, or other techniques. For the second card, we're going to make a little forest of trees, and so I've chosen a smaller die. I've drawn a horizontal line across my panel and marked the centre. That's where my middle triangle is going to go. I've then made some markings splitting each side so that I'll have 3 equally distant triangles. When I put them through my die cutting machine, I lay the outside of the bottom of the die on that line. So the cutting line is actually slightly above the line, but I'm using the line to line the die up, and it's all come out nice and straight. Once again, I'm using a piece of paper from the Oh So Sweet Christmas pack, and I've cut that down to size. This time though, we're going to make a shaker. And so first of all, I'm putting down some double-sided tape and a piece of acetate to cover my 3 triangle holes. Next, I'm going to do foam tape. Unlike the other card where I was just putting enough tape so that nothing sagged, this time I have to be really careful that there are no holes that my shaker mix can escape from. And so I'm making sure that as I cut it and as I lay it down, that all of my pieces of tape are butting up against each other around those triangles. Once the triangles are done, I'm then adding tape around the outside so that nothing sags, and so that it looks nice when you look at it from the side. And I have some red and gold and green sequins that I'm just filling into the gaps there. Once that's done, we have the hardest part of the whole card, and that is removing all of this tape without moving the card and flinging the sequins across the table. But once all the tape is peeled back, we can add the back and we have our shaker element ready to go. Because I put tape between each of those triangles, we have 3 individual shakers. The sentiment for this card is going to come from the Crisp Christmas sentiment set. I've been waiting all year to be able to say Crisp Christmas again. This is a really well used set in my craft room, as you can see by all the bits and pieces that I have in the pack. I'm going to put this sentiment onto a piece of red backing paper, just a little offcut, and cut that down so that it has just a whisker of a border all of the way around. I'm using another piece of the same red card as my backing, and then I'm going to place my shaker element onto that and also glue down the sentiment. For a final touch, I thought I'd try something different. I've left out 3 of the gold sequins from the shaker mix, and I'm going to add those as stars. But rather than just leaving them as sequins, I'm switching out my glue to glossy accents, which, as the name suggests, dries glossy. I'm putting down a generous amount of glossy accents and then pressing a sequin into each of those dots. The glue is squirting up through the center and around the sides, but that doesn't matter, because next I'm going to come in with the glossy accents and fill in on top of those sequins so that I have a beautiful dome. At the moment, it looks cloudy because it's not dry, but once it dries, we have these beautiful enclosed gold domes, which I thought made a lovely finishing touch for this card. That's all for today. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with another card. Bye for now.